Welcome to today's episode of Bible Question and Answers with Nana Arkoh. In today's episode, we take a look at a fundamental question that, if not carefully answered, cast away certain scriptures like Romans chapter 3 verse 23, which says, "For all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God." Romans chapter 5 verse 12, 15 and 17, which says, "Wherefore as by one man sin entered into the world, and death by sin, and so death passed upon all men, for that all have sinned. But not as the offense, so also is the free gift. For if through the offense of one many be dead, much more the grace of God and the gift by grace, which is by one man, Jesus Christ, hath abounded unto many." Verse 17, "For if by one man's offense death reigned, and much more they which receive abundance of grace and of the gift of righteousness shall reign in life by one, Jesus Christ." And 1 Corinthians chapter 15 verse 21-22, "For since by man came death, by man came also the resurrection of the dead." Verse 22, "For as in Adam all die, even so in Christ shall all be made alive." And verse 45, which can also be cast down if this question is not answered carefully. "And so it is written, the first man Adam was made a living soul, the last Adam was made a quickening spirit." The question is, who did Cain marry? And where is the land of Nod? Let's look at the Bible text that speaks about this issue. Genesis chapter 4 verse 16, "And Cain went out from the presence of the Lord and dwelt in the land of Nod on the east of Eden." Verse 17, "And Cain knew his wife, and she conceived and bare Enoch. And he builded a city and called the name of the city after the name of his son Enoch." So the question is, who did Cain marry? Where is the land of Nod? From verse 17, does it mean that there were some people in the land of Nod? Does it mean that there were other creation apart from Adam and Eve? Because there is some doctrine that is going around that in Genesis chapter 1, which says that let us make man in our own image, and you come down, it says that God created man and woman. They try to tell us that that creation story is different from the creation story that happened in Genesis 2, that says that Adam and Eve are the first man and wife. We find that stated clearly in Genesis chapter 3 verse 20. "And Adam called his wife's name Eve, because she was the mother of all living." The moment the Bible text is true that she was the mother of all living, then where from the people in the land of Nod? And the key to answer this question comes from Genesis chapter 4 verse 3, which says, "And in the process of time it came to pass that Cain brought of the fruit of the ground an offering unto the Lord." What is the meaning in the process of time? There is no time frame given to it. There is no time frame, maybe 10 years after this fight. There was no time frame. But we can get a clear amount of years Adam lived before this birth and all that came in. That is in Genesis chapter 5 verse 3, which says, "And Adam lived 130 years, and begat a son in his own likeness after his image, and called his name Seth." So after 130 years, Adam gave birth to Seth. So between the age of 1 and then 130, we can find Cain and Abel in there. And if we can find Cain and Abel, does it mean that it was just Cain and Abel that Adam and Eve had? Or there is a different interpretation to it? We can find a different interpretation to it if we look into Genesis chapter 5 and we come down verse 4. It says, "And the days of Adam after he had begotten Seth were 800 years, and he begat sons and daughters." There is a colon, which means that whatever follows the colon is explaining or giving more meaning to what is before the colon. And so this is trying to tell us that there were sons and daughters. We do not know if the sons and daughters came in between the birth of Cain and Abel, in between the birth of Abel and Seth, or in after the birth of Seth. And so what we can say in here is that Seth was not the last child of Adam and Eve. And the Bible did not say that Seth is the third child of Adam and Eve. Rather, he is just a man through whom they thought that there was going to be redemption. The redemption that was spoken of in Genesis chapter 3 verse 15. So now let's come back to read this text carefully. If all the text we read in 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verse 21 to 22, and verse 45, Romans chapter 5, verse 12. If those texts are true, then let's come back and read the Genesis chapter 4, verse 16 and 17 microscopically for us to understand. And Cain went out from the presence of the Lord and dwelt in the land of Nod on the east of Eden, and Cain knew his wife. So in verse 17, the text doesn't tell us that and Cain had a wife in the land of Nod. Rather, and Cain knew his wife, trying to bring us to light that Cain brought his wife when he was going to the land of Nod. And the meaning of that Nod is, so you move out of the presence of the Lord and then you go out, you find nothing. You find nothing, because if he says that there is joy in the presence of God, when you move out, there is just sorrow. So with the absence of joy, then there is nothing. And nothing here means sorrow, means grief and all that. So who did Cain marry? At once your mind would prick you that from the preceding explanation given, then it means that Cain married his relative, presumably his sister, or perhaps as a daughter of Seth, perhaps a daughter of Abel, if he had any. So there are three different interpretations to this: his sister or his niece. His sister or his niece. But the question will become, what about the command God gave about 2,500 years later that man should not marry his kinsman? That is in Leviticus chapter 18, verse 6 and 11. Leviticus chapter 18, verse 6 and 11. It says that none of you shall approach to any that is near of kin to him, to uncover their nakedness. I am the Lord. The nakedness of thy sister, the daughter of thy father or daughter of thy mother, whether she be born at home or born abroad, even their nakedness thou shalt not uncover. So we understand that this is 2,500 years later, when the people of earth had been when the earth has been populated by the descendant of Adam and Eve. And so before that, there was nothing like extra people on earth. And so how then would God's command that they should be fruitful and multiply on the surface of earth, how then would it be fulfilled? So like for instance, in the story of Noah, God gave the same command: you should multiply on the earth. And so therefore, niece and nephew would get married, son and sister would get married. And so in that order, that is what happened. So before God gave that command in Leviticus 18, there were multiple of people on this earth. And also, why is it that we don't marry people of our own relation? The kind of disease we get, the gene, how weak our gene is now cannot be compared to how strong their genes were at the time. And so the gene vitality is so important in this context. And so the question, who did Cain marry and where is the land of Nod, has an answer. Cain married someone of his own kin. That is someone of his own blood, his relative, presumably his sister. Join me next time for another question and answer about the Bible. Let me know what you think about today's discussion in the comment section below.